Hello, everybody. If it's Wednesday, it's Warhammer, and that must mean it's time for another episode of Warhammer Weekly. Joining me, as always, it's my own speed freak. He's in the car right next to me. It's Tom. How you doing, buddy?
Hello, friends.
So Tom, we don't have a huge amount of news this week, but what we do have is I hope a great discussion. Because and I want to give a shout out to a member of my group here, to my friend Tom Broker, who's one of my regular game group, who last week when we were rolling some dice said, you've been talking about tournament stuff a lot lately. What about like the way we play?
What? That doesn't exist. No one does that.
Right. No one just plays casually and uses fun lists that they find enjoyable and doesn't worry about how hard-edged or tournament ready it is, right? And I was like, you know what, Tom, that's a really good point. So I said, let's do that for the show this week. Then it ended up we had to move our guest. So I apologize to Steve Wren. He'll be on in a couple weeks. He was originally going to be here, but I had to travel. I actually just got back in. I've been gone all week. I literally just got in like an hour and a half ago. So it worked out well. So we're going to talk about that. We've got some fun lists to share. I got a bunch of fun ones. I'm excited to share these bad lists.
So it's funny. It's real hard for me to build like bad lists. Like I don't want it's against my grain. And so what I ended up with are either like fun lists or like gimmicky lists. Like what in tournament terms, what I'd call like 3-2 lists.
Sure.
Where they're just not going to win a tournament, but damn it, I want to play them. Those types of lists.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Look, part of what exactly that's what we're going to get into today. Like, I find that if you go down the road of being obsessed with like only playing the best stuff, it can be rather. First of all, it's stunting to your hobby. Second off, it is, because here's the problem: you're going to put yourself on a treadmill of doing stuff you're not necessarily as passionate about, right?
Right.
Whereas if you find stuff you really love and make lists you really love and play with models you really love, then you will have a good time. Now, how many of it, like, and my point of that is, how many games do you play a year that are tournament games, right? Like it's so we'll discuss like the nature of playing these games and getting people into a different mindset and stuff like that. That's what we're going to talk about as we go through it, as well as sharing some fun lists that maybe people will enjoy. But first up, some news. All right, what do you got?
Sure. Let's do Rumor Engine.
Okay. Sounds good. Let's do that. Because you're going to, I don't know. I think you're going to think it's a thing, but it's probably not a thing. It's probably a different thing. We'll see. Here we go. He said, being vague.
So this is part 3 of the Rumor Engines. Okay. And what I mean by that is we've seen this thing twice before.
Okay.
In prior Rumor Engines. Do you know which ones I'm speaking of?
Are you talking about like the other insectoid stuff?
Yeah, so the one where you're like tricky, and you're like flip the picture around. This is what that thing is.
Yeah, the Emperor's Children. Yeah, the Emperor's Children Marine, the Noise Marine.
So those round things that were on the edge were the same thing as these tubes. Like if you go and look, they're the exact same things.
They're very similar. Yes, I will grant you that. I shout out here to War Boss Kurgan, who actually started a blog site completely dedicated to this, by the by, to the Rumor Engine, and he updates it. So you're talking about this one.
Yeah. And so if you zoom in and look on the right and left of that thing, they're like the same things.
I disagree. Like, this is obviously a Noise Marine mask. Like, flip it over, it's a Noise Marine mask. You tried to trick us. It's not. Like, that is what that is. Sure. I think this is something different. And I think this is a deep cut. I think this has been solved. I don't have a ready picture of it. Actually, somebody might. I bet if I zoom down here in these comments, somebody actually posted it. Yep, there he is. Tim. It's this guy.
What is he?
This is Amble. It's an old thing from Rogue Trader. It was like a wandering monster in Rogue Trader way back in the day. This is like an late 80s, early 90s. I don't remember exactly, quite a while ago. And yeah, somebody if you look at this, look at the shapes in the chitin, right?
Yep.
And now look at this again. And tell me that isn't the exact same thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that
So
is
does that mean
crazy
that the
details in
other
there.
thing that you thought was Slanesh is not also this thing? Or do you think it's separate?
No, I think it's separate. I think they just have a similar, like, this is how a lot of tube type stuff ends up looking,
Sure.
right?
Sure.
It's just,
Yeah.
you know, like anytime they have these kind of tubes, they tend to get fashioned like this. One of the challenges, I think, of modern sculpting, since a lot of it's done in 3D prints, right? Is that you can use the same elements, right? Like because you're grabbing design elements on your 3D thing. Now, one of the thing that was asked by you know, we were having a discussion with Martin Orlando, and he had a discussion. He said, "How long does it have to sit there to have dust built up?"
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yes.
So I would like to take us way back here.
Okay.
I'm going to jump in the Wayback Machine to the beginnings of our rumor engine. Hold on.
Okay.
Scan here. Okay. Remember this thing from way back that is a rogue trader guy?
Yep. The unsolved one that everybody thought was KO.
Right. But it's actually this rogue trader dude right here.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So like this is when they had paint. Look at this.
That was on my birthday last year.
Yeah, this is a year and a half ago. Literally more than. And they had painted rogue trader models, right? It's obvious that this got pushed way around. So my answer is could be a long time that this painted model was sitting there, right? So yeah, I mean, I think that's a great call. I think that's what this dude is. Shout out to whoever, like, I think a couple people noticed this, but man, that is a dead eye right there because yeah, that
is a deep cut.
It is a deep cut. Yeah. He was sort of like a random monster in original Rogue Trader. So
yeah, would not have gotten that one. So not Grotz.
Not Grotz. No, I mean, I think what's fun for them at this point is that they're releasing a couple different things that are all like along a similar line. Okay. Yeah. And trying to trick people into like thinking they're all the same thing. Right. And actually on that tip, while we're talking about rumor engines, I'm going to reshare here because I'll go back to War Boss Kurgan for a moment. Our oldest unsolved rumor engine just got solved. This isn't an AOS item, so we wouldn't normally talk about it, but it's worth mentioning because it's kind of cool. Remember this wheel from last May? Badow. It's the Speed Freak wheel.
Well, yes, but that wasn't. Yeah. That was our oldest unsolved one. Yep.
Right. It was the oldest one that didn't have a direct answer at this point. Right.
There it is, folks.
Yeah. We're now fully caught up through last May, which is crazy to think that it took us this long to get there. I mean, it shows how they are willing to move around the release schedule, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now this one takes the sort of the cake as the oldest one, which, by the way, I wouldn't be surprised if this one ended up being a Rogue Trader model too. Right. This
or even
double carbine. Yeah, exactly. Like, yes, it could be like either it shows up in you know, one of the couple of things we've been talking about. Because it just fits that aesthetic. And then we have this mysterious candle. And this is the one I really want to know more than anything, because it's obvious that like whatever got photoshopped out. I want to know what's up with that candle. I've never been more interested in a candle in my entire life.
You would have figured it would have been something spooky, but that wasn't in any of the spooker. You know what? I know what it is.
I'm ready.
The Shadespire Night Haunt release.
Could be. Sure. I mean, like, it would make sense that that's going to happen in season 2, right? So,
the starter for season 2 will likely be Night Haunt versus Stormcast.
Sure. Yeah. The
question is what is that box called?
Spooky Ghosts. Oh, sorry. It has to have a name.
Shadespire.
Underworlds. No, it could be something different. It could be in a new.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it was Warhammer Underworld Shadespire. Warhammer Underworlds basically are all the names of the undead places. Like, the Underworlds are the places of Shaish. Okay?
Sure.
So I know what I think it's going to be.
I'm ready. Go. Drop that hot take on me.
Nagashazar.
Oh, sure. That's a good call. That'd be cool. Yeah. That would be a good call. Yeah, that'd be sweet. Sure. You need to have reason for a lot of different people to be playing around in there and stuff. So yeah. Given the catastrophe. and everything that happened with the Necroquake. Yeah, I dig that.
And and you could have like time manipulated, like around the weight of all that magic and stuff like that. You could have reincarnate, like, so it would give reason for them to fight the same warbands over and over and over again.
Yeah. As a narrative construct, certainly being the heart of the Necroquake, right? Like, yes, magic is clearly off kilter there. So, I mean, they talked about how even Nagash can't really go in there, right? Because it's just so messed up. So, I mean, because it's been polluted by chaos and all that. Go rats. Okay, so there you go. That's the rumor engine. A lot of stuff there. I thought that was cool. Obviously, we're not going to talk deeply about Speed Freaks, but I thought that was neat to see that published. You know, I saw a comment.
Hey, don't ruin this. One of my next news item. October, baby.
October,
Speed Freaks, Gorka Morka, the new Gorka Morka coming.
Absolutely. I saw somebody comment that like that seems like there's a lot of sudden fans of old Gorka Morka. Okay.
Yeah. Like, why didn't why didn't all of these people enjoy the game before?
Right. And I mean, I don't know that that's so here's my hot take on that. I'm a fan of a lot of old games I don't play. But if suddenly a new version of it showed up, I would be like reinvigorated and be like, yes, I was a fan of that thing. I'm a fan of lots of old things I don't necessarily participate anymore in. That doesn't mean I'm not an old fan of them. I love Transformers, the original animated movie from, 1986 or whatever. I haven't watched it recently because in the past year, I still love it. I would watch it, but the point is that if they made a new one that was actually that good, I'd be excited for that too. So you don't have to be actively doing it.
Alas, fan of a thing. Michael Bay.
Well, whatever, dude. Bumblebee. Not what we're here to talk about. Okay.
Yeah, it's true.
All right. Yeah, October, and then obviously the that ties right into the next rumor, which is Grot Timber.
Right? Is it Grot? Yeah, Grot Timber. Yeah. November, Grot Timber would be September. Yeah, Grot Timber. Yeah, September is when we think Grots are coming, which again, not real surprising. We knew so you have the back-to-back green skin months. We had heard that they were coming this summer. That potentially we were going to have an early, or like originally, if you remember the rumor engine from about 8 months ago, we heard orcs were coming in the summer, potentially in June, like early June, which ended up being the Imperial Night release. And so it looks like they've, again, talking about flipping around schedules.
Sure.
They moved it to October. And now we got the orcs and the grots pushed up against each other. So those Moon Clan we know are coming in September.
Here's the thing. I don't know if it's actually going to be Moon Clan. I like that is a proper termed.
My gosh.
A situation where we get something totally like where we get a new subsection here.
So how much would I love if we either got a completely new thing or the Green Tide book?
Yeah, I don't think we'll get a Green Tide book, and I've long been anti Green Tide book. I don't like the idea of the Green Tide book.
How about just a Grots book?
Sure. That'd be fine. Because there's a lot of ancillary forces hanging out.
Like, how about just Gits?
Yeah, I mean, my argument for goblins would be that I think the Fungoid Cave Shaman is illustrative of what we're going to get.
He's clearly been playing.
Sure. But at the same time, what I'll say is I'm not sure that they honestly... Okay, here's my guess. The Heralds were done a long time before all the releases were necessarily done. Okay? Because they knew they wanted to do Malign Portents quite a ways out.
Yep. And they're willing to change War Scrolls, as we've seen with the
Lord Nader.
Lord Nader. Yep.
Yeah. So I don't think it would be a completely different thing. I'm just saying I think they could pivot, and I wouldn't be surprised. Right? So it could end up being an expansion of Moon Clan. But my point is that I wouldn't be surprised at the same time if we got something like an Iron Jaws equivalent where yes, it had Black Orcs in it, right?
Yeah.
Or it had these Moon Clan Grots in it, but then they became their own new thing, right?
Yeah.
So, if they had a Fungus Among Us thing, I don't know. Just they could go that direction pretty straightforwardly.
I love the idea of creepy crawlies. We've talked about this. I love some bugs. Give me some millipedes and some little spider fang mini faction in there. Thinking about
sure.
Yeah. Yep.
Let's cut to Vince for a live reaction of what he thinks about that. That's what I think about that. Yeah, I mean, I hate bugs. Bugs and creepy crawlies creep me out.
Well,
So
you're gonna like talking about one of my lists today.
I'm sure. I don't mind talking about the list. But you know, that's fine. We'll see. We'll see what happens. The reality is, and that leads right to our next two news items. We're gonna
We
know.
have some news. Yeah, we'll know very quickly.
Yes, we are on the verge. Like the reason it's been so quiet is because they are on the verge of like back to back. They've got to spoil or talk about a lot of crap. Because Warhammer Fest is this weekend in Dusseldorf, the EU or European, I don't know, whatever you want to say. It's in Dusseldorf. It's Warhammer Fest Europe. And the preview show is 11 a.m. local time there. So like, I think that's 5 in the morning here. Yeah, that sounds right.
We will wake up to news. That's what happened last year.
Sure.
And that's what will happen again this year.
Yep. And then less than 2 weeks later, on the 29th of August, we have the Nova Open release show, which I'll be there for that Wednesday night. And
our show will be that.
Yeah, I mean, our show will be the live from Nova show. Now that I figured out how to do this crap from my phone, and which is sadly better than any internet at the hotel, yes, we'll be there and we'll be talking about it live. But they haven't. I doubt they'll show much of the same stuff, right?
Right.
Because they want to make this. They want to make it impactful and meaningful for the people who show up and come to it.
Right. They want to make it splash.
Yeah, exactly. So like. 2 giant shows of spoilers and what's coming. Now, obviously, there's going to be a lot of 40K. I imagine we'll get a big Rogue Trader section, right? Like, since that's going to be right on the horizon, like, we're going to get a bunch of Rogue Trader crap. So, like, bank on that. I'm hoping, personally, this has nothing to do with the show, but I am hoping for another Sisters of Battle update. They keep trotting those out. We saw the first model last time. I would at Warhammer Fest. I'd love to see more. Show me some sweet plastic. That's what I want to see. There you go. But yeah, I mean, clearly there will be some AOS in there. And more importantly, it's going to be an AOS preview that actually tells us where we're going, because we're kind of in limbo right now. Right?
What are next steps in the narrative?
Yeah, we've known since basically last Nova where we were going, right? Because last Nova, they sort of spoiled Malign Portents. And we kind of had this idea, and it was going to be death, and it was going to be this dark year, and then we had AOS 2, and that was sort of the culmination of it, and, you know, death is the primary enemy now, but okay, now what? Right? And so I think this will sort of set the tone. Are we going to just be fleshing out a lot of this? Are we going to start something new in narrative? No. I don't know what the answer is to that, and I'll be interested to see what it is. So there you go. Yep. Next 2 weeks are going to be full of some revelations.
Indeed, but we have slow news until then. So obviously the two news things. The other thing that dropped around, we've talked about kind of the changes in the schedule, and it looks like the Dark Oath, which we thought were coming momentarily, are up in the air again.
Yeah.
So whatever that rumored release was, which the rumor, if I remember, it was not only Dark Oath, but also Beastmen thing.
Yeah.
Whatever that was is up in the air.
Well,
so
and like
we don't know.
Yeah, the person didn't say it's not happening. Right. The person said they think that they've
rearranged the schedule. Yep. Yeah. The release schedule has been changed.
Exactly.
Yep. So that happened.
Yeah, I mean, it is a shoe that has to drop eventually.
Yep.
Right? Yep. Because it will be the last unanswered rumor engine, I guess, or not rumor engine. I'm sorry, Herald. There we go.
Harbinger.
Yeah, Harbinger, whatever. But that being said, you know, a big part of the narrative of the Dark Oath War Queen was sort of subsuming and bonding with a Slaanesh band. Yeah. So they could always move it around to. Yeah, so they could always move it around to tie in with that. I mean, I wouldn't put it past them. So there you go. All right. What else we got? Anything else?
Rumor engine, Grots. No, that's it. And the 2 news shows coming up.
Okay. So I mean, as I said, next week will be a big week because if what comes out of Warhammer Fest Europe is big enough, then you can expect Tom and I to do a show this Saturday. Because as traditional, if we got another video like that Daughters of Cain video, still maybe my greatest moment of a reveal ever when I woke up to that or whatever that thing to LVO. I love that so much.
What do you mean woke up to it? We
Whatever
were up
time.
at like 11 p.m. It went up, and we immediately did a show at like midnight.
It was great. It was great. And yes, like I have watched that video, I don't know, 500 times. I would leave it on repeat while I was painting my daughters. Just that initial reveal video, because that's the kind of psychopath I am. So there you go. All right, so let's talk about some pick of the week, man. What do you got?
I think I don't think we've mentioned this before on the show.
Okay.
But there's a new there's a new podcast that went live this summer. They're on, I think, episode 8. It's comedians John Roy and Andrew DeWitt, Legends of the Paintymen.
Yep.
And it's fun and enjoyable and weird. It's more aimed at a popular audience, is what I would say. Like, if I were to, we're a niche. Like, our show just it just leans in, and we make no apologies for what we're talking about.
Sure.
Where it's clear that they're translating our hobby for the wider population.
Sure.
Like, they're aiming for a much broader appeal. But it's still kind of a fun engagement. And they have fun, weird stories. Like, the one guy's wife was playing Magic with Adam from Adam Ruins Everything.
Okay.
And beat him. Like, the wife in her first game beat him in Magic. And so there's these other, like, gaming things that slip in as they kind of talk and engage on that stuff. So
sure.
Yeah, it's fun.
Well, unlike us, who we never mention Magic or any other game ever. Never have we made Illusions. We're 100% on message, on brand every time. That's the level of quality that we deliver. Yeah.
Their professionalism and quality, or professionalism, is a little bit higher than ours. If that's, I mean, most people wouldn't be surprised, but people that are in the industry, sure. But anyway,
they are professional comedians.
They are professional comedians, and they're writers for different shows, like, bunch of late night stuff, Jimmy Kimmel. Yeah. Anyways. So yeah. Yeah,
it's good stuff. It's in my feed. It's one of my podcast rotations. I dig it. For me, I want to give a shout out to a friend of the show, 2+ Tough, who's doing a little new lore series that's pretty cool. Where it's called Exploring the Realms. It's not super new, but he's done a couple of them, but I want to shout it out nonetheless. A couple of days ago, he did Akshi, the Realm of Fire. I think that for a lot of people who maybe don't have the background in, like, Planescape or D&D, the realms might be harder to wrap their brains around. For us, as I said, we never talk about anything else.
Ever.
Right. For us, Tom, this is obviously old hat because we both, we're Planescape players, and the idea of an infinite realm that is also not infinite, that is composed of a singular idea made manifest that gets wilder around the edges. Like, that is literally the idea behind the planes. So this is all, very comfortable concept. And I would also say one of the reasons I took to the Mortal Realms right away is Planescape was always my favorite realm.
Yep.
So my favorite game world, whatever you want to say, I don't know. But for those who might not be as familiar and want to learn more about it, 2+ Tough does awesome stuff and has a great breakdown kind of explaining the nature of the thing. He talks through it and geography and what it means, shows how, like, just everything about it. Because the planes are obviously more than just geography, right? They also impact the people who live there, the personality of people who live there, that kind of stuff. So,
yep.
Right on. So check that out. We'll link both of those down below. I'll link the Legends of the Paintymen and 2+ Tough's video down below. All right. So Tom, let's turn to some hobby time, man. You've been working, buddy. Because I had one of the worst travel days I've ever had in my life on Tuesday. Okay, I'm not gonna go into the whole story here,
sure,
but it was horrible. And I ended up in a different city at the end of the day than I intended to be at. That's always a good day when you have to just like get on a different plane than you want to go to because you need to get
you want
anywhere
to get to
else.
Olgu and you end up in Akshi.
Right. You just like anywhere else but here is better than here. Okay.
Right.
Like it's the last chopper out of Vietnam kind of situation. At any rate, that whole day while I was like going through all this nonsense on the phone, trying to reschedule flights, dealing with all this nonsense, you're over here texting me like, wait, how do I, what's this? What if I want to do this color thing? What's going on here? What about this? How would I do this? And I'm like, on one hand, I was like, Tom, shut up. I'm stressed. On the other hand, I was like, oh, it's a good distraction. So I didn't stop you. It was actually nice. There you go. Kept my sanity by making me think about hobby.
Yeah, if I can't, like, let's see how much I can torment Vince for what he actually wants to be doing. That's right.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. So what have you been working on is my point.
Daughters. We have Holy Havoc coming up, and I have to put some stuff together for us. So I've gotten my first block of 30 done-ish. I might go through and do some hair changes, some highlights. Let me share. I don't have the whole block picture, but I have a couple of my models, and so you can get a glimpse of my scheme. I went for a very mono, what would be considered a complementary scheme, right? What's the
analogous?
Analogous. There we go. An analogous scheme. Normally, I go like with complementary schemes, which are like you have like 2 in 1, but these are all like things in the same space with a little bit of purple mixed in and then blood. There's red on the models too. You just can't see it with the lighting here. So their eyes and the gemstones and stuff like that. So, and my bases are aiming to replicate some of what Vince has done as well for his models. So those are some of my girls. I have 30 of those done. Basically, like I said, I needed to work on the hair a little bit, but that's where those are at. And then in the meantime, while I was waiting to hear from Vince on some discussions on the hair, I was like, well, I guess I ought to start another model. And then somehow ended with this.
Sure.
So what started as like a weird kind of very like subtle pattern on the body ended with this ridiculousness of...
It's a good use of Hellebron's head.
Thanks. I agree.
Anything that isn't the normal Medusa head is an upgrade.
So terrible. It's so terrible.
That is the worst head they've ever sculpted on a model. That's not true. It's in the bottom 20 though. There you go.
Yeah, I looked and looked and looked, and this is what I ended up with that I liked. So, so I'm still working on this. Obviously, I have some detailing, some touch-ups and stuff like that. But I was happy with how it came out.
Nice.
So
very bright pattern.
Yeah. Again, it's weird because I'm basically operating in all neutrals with purple.
Sure.
Which is a weird experiment, like a painting exercise for myself.
Well, and you've resisted my multiple attempts to get you to put pink in there.
Yeah, I have.
I've really been trying.
You really want hot pink in there, and like
I do.
I'm already like kissing up against Slaanesh as like a color scheme, and if I went pink, it would all be Slaanesh. Like it would obviously be a Slaanesh paint scheme. But this, like, it's an Olgu, like shadowy, like, yeah.
No, it's fine. Yeah, it's good. I understand. You're going for the thing.
Pink. Say what?
Well, I've got some projects in the tank that are going to really drive you crazy then, because we are getting like after post Nova, I've got some hot pink on the chart.
Pink and blue, pink and teal.
Just look, it's gonna be a synth wave for like a month after Nova. Okay, yeah, it's like new 80s, new retro all over again. I've been building my playlist very carefully of like the new retro wave stuff that I want to listen to while I'm painting. Some Red Eyes and a couple other things like that, like in that vein. So yeah. Anyways.
So, and I'm working on a Cauldron. So I have a really freaky, weird cut, like lots of like neutrals again on my Cauldron. So
sure.
It'll be interesting to see how this comes together, if it does indeed.
It'll be funny when we put our two models next to each
it's
other.
Gonna look terrible. It's gonna look terrible next to each other. Yours are all gonna be like super bright psychedelic teals and pinks, and mine are gonna just be like drab. They're gonna be the epitome of Ulgu, like the dark, like heavy, like color scheme. It's gonna be so hilarious.
It should be interesting. Whatever, it's fine. I'll have to get the board prepared. That's an October task. Getting the display board prepared. And shout out, somebody mentioned Gunship. Yeah, it's great stuff. If you're looking for that sort of that style that I was mentioning, great stuff. At any rate, I also, by the way, earlier, I love that when I mentioned Transformers, like immediately all the Stan Bush quotes and the quotes from the movie started rolling into the comments, which is a great thing. So that's wonderful. At any rate, for myself, I have been continuing to work on this guy, this bust. He's coming along. You can see there he is. Like, obviously, I haven't touched his sword yet, but the rest of him is pretty long for sort of base tones. Now we're going to be, well, base tones, the wrong word.
So still highlighting some gold there?
Well, that's so funny. So, like, I was, obviously, Tom and I talk a lot outside of the show, and all weekend when I was talking to him, he's like, what are you doing? And I was like, I'm highlighting gold. And, like, I think that was Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, I was highlighting gold. I mean, I probably spent 30 or 40 hours highlighting gold. I was doing other stuff, I guess, in there. So it's probably like 25 of those hours were highlighting gold. Yeah. But this guy's coming along. I'm excited about him. It's going to be going back and doing the texturing on him next on things like the cloth and on the gold and stuff like that. But I had a video with him where I showed about how to do cold non-metallic metal, since he's got both colors. He's warm on the front and cold on the back. And so there's still a little bit more gold to do, but he's coming along. And I'm happy because I'm just going to call him the Imperishable, when I'm all done. Like, he's clearly my Cetra bust. Like, that's what's in my head. That's why I went with the sort of classic Tomb King's colors. In my head, this guy it's the bust of Cetra. He's got that giant, ridiculous sword, which, like, Cetra classically had that big, ridiculous blade of Petra or whatever. So there you go. Yeah, so that's what I'm working on. As always, we want to know what you're working on as well. We hope you're painting some models. We hope you're fighting the war against the Grey Wall listening to this. That is the idea. We provide mild entertainment. You paint models. That's the deal. All right. So anyways. Yep. So Tom, let's talk about some fun lists, man.
Let's do it.
All right. So I wanted to, I kind of mentioned the story at the top, but I want to talk about what this means. Like, what are we even on about right now?
Sure.
Because I don't really think we're on about bad lists, right? That's not the goal. The goal isn't to make a bad list. Okay. Although some of them may very well be by whatever loaded term we're calling that, right?
Oh, I don't know. Some of mine are pretty bad.
Sure. But I mean, that's the point, is that has a set of presumptions behind it, right?
Right. It has to be being measured against something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think the way I think of it, and I don't like the word casual either, right? Because that sort of implies, that has this sort of connotation of caring about it less. And maybe that's part of it, but it doesn't have to be. For me, I think this is a much more amorphous thing, right? Like, when we talk about this, there are a lot of have-nots in the world right now. That's just the reality, right? There are some armies that aren't as competitive. They're not, sort of at the top tier. They're not going to go 5 games to a tournament. But who cares? For your garage gaming, your basement gaming, they're still perfectly valid and fun. And the reality is, even if you're going against those quote-unquote super top armies, unless those super top armies are running their best lists, you can have a highly competitive game with them, right?
And not only that, like, especially in garage games, you might find yourself often playing in, like, triumph and treachery style rules.
Yeah.
And that changes the math. Like, that's a different game, and that changes the math for what's going to be successful in those types of games.
Yeah, as Tom learned when he came down and did a 3-player game with me, like, my normal games are usually 3 or 4 players. I basically most weeks I'm playing multiplayer. It's actually a rarity that I get a standard, one-on-one game in. It happens, but it's not as common unless I'm like directly prepping for a tournament. But like what becomes valid in a situation like that is so much different because it's chaos ball, right? Like 2 Eddie armies are going to beat one well-tuned list. You know what I mean? Like if the 2 other armies are of the same equivalent size. So it's between that and just thinking about like, how do you foster that casual attitude? And this is something I've thought a lot about because in my group, we're very much about just kind of like a laid back style. And so I think that's part of this, right? And that's the first thing I want to talk about here with this. I think part of this is attitude. Doesn't mean you don't play the rules, or it doesn't mean that. It means that you don't worry about necessarily siloing yourself. So like we will use narrative scenarios or triumph of treachery scenarios or coalition of death scenarios. We will make up new objectives at the start of the game that we all agree on, right? We will allow, like, if somebody wants to play Tomb Kings or Bretonians or something, yeah, okay, great, sure, knock yourself out. Like, the points still exist, right? They're still out there. We use points, but like, just because it's not in the GHB 2018, who gives a hoot? Right?
This game is more than just match play.
Yeah, exactly. And like, in the very distinct sense, like people often like match play has a concrete definition. I'm not arguing with that, right? But just because you're not doing that exactly doesn't mean you can't use the structures out of it that you want.
Right. Like the points or the force orb or anything like that.
Yeah, exactly. Like we use the points, we use the force org, we use all that standard stuff, right? We have battalions and command abilities and all the command points, or rather, all that standard crap. Like basically we use most of the stuff that was on that optional chart. Okay.
Sure. Yep.
We just use them in different ways. Like we use them in multiplayer scenarios. We use them we make up our own secondary objectives, right? That we all agree on. Like somebody says, well, how about we do this and this and this? Okay, cool. Let's do that. Right. And when we bring lists, we try to bring lists full of models we enjoy. That is sort of the overarching thing. And none of us think about it from a tournament perspective. We don't try to tune them. That doesn't mean we don't try to make them, good. It just means we don't sit there. There's a difference between like fine tuning a list for a tournament and just like thinking about a list and trying to have a fun version of it.
Like I'm more likely, if I'm going to do a garage game, to just grab a bunch of units. I'm like, yeah, sure. I'm just going to throw this in. And yeah, I need an anvil. So let me just throw this in. And okay, that's 2,000. Let's play that. Rather than I do that and I'm like, no, there's fat here. Trim this, drop this. And that's what Vince gets to hear from me all day is I send him a list and I'm like, what do you think about this? And you're like, well, what about this? Or why are you doing this? And I'm like, you're right. Cut this, add this, remove this, change this. Okay, how about this? And then that goes on for 800 iterations.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. No, you're not wrong. Yeah, I mean, that's building
that's really writing for tournament.
Yeah.
But that's not what this is.
Whereas this is like we have a bunch of models. I will openly admit that within my gaming group we have a luxury because we basically have access to every army except Deepkin. Yeah.
Beastclaw Raiders.
I guess that's true. Yeah, no BCR. That must be why I don't think about them often. They're not there. I have all the ogres. I have a massive Gutbuster collection, but no BCR. Yeah. Yep. So because of that, like most anybody in the group and the models, like anybody's welcome to use my models when they're over here gaming at my house.
Vince functionally has a club in his basement in Space-Wise. So like a bunch of people's models are all kept on shelves at his place.
Right. Exactly. And if people want to add to their own forces with mine, I don't care. You're welcome to. So there's only one cabinet that's off limits. You don't get the stuff out of. Okay. So
I'm gonna get me that redemption engine.
Sure. That's I had what my buddy asked me, when is he allowed to take out the Titans? I said never. That's an official never. But So like we just tend to experiment and play with different fun lists. Now, here's what I'll point out. It doesn't mean people don't necessarily play powerful stuff.
Right. Right.
Okay.
Like you faced a gun line, like the various typical like stereotypical tournament gun line for like every weekend for like 6 months.
Yeah, well, yes, correct. Like the worst of the worst AOS 1 gun line, like just all the cannons, all the handgunners, all the bonuses, everybody's on twos. That was just his fun list. You know what I mean? And this last weekend, by the way, same player who I promise you is the least competitive guy in the world, has no idea, does not watch the show. One of my best friends, he was literally the best man at my wedding. Okay. And just couldn't give two craps about power level. Like has no nonsense, has never been to a forum, has no concept of even what meta means in applied to Warhammer, right?
He just wants all the guns.
Well, this last weekend, he was playing his other favorite list, now that we've gone to AOS 2, which is like Nagash and giant blocks of skeletons and direwolf chaff, right? And with some backup necromancer casters. And he's like, and so we're talking about this relative power level because this conversation about fun things came up. And he's like, well, I'm sure nobody plays a list like this. And I was like, dude, you're literally playing like a tournament winning list right now. Like, I don't know. I know you don't know that, but like Nagash and giant blocks of ultra buffed skeletons with direwolf chaff and backup necromancers and crap is literally like a tournament winning list. Like that is a hard edged list. But he just stumbles into it. Like, he didn't try, and I don't care. I'm not going to tell him no, because again, like there's so much else going on. It was a big game. It's a 4-player game. It wasn't in any way disruptive, and it was actually a lot of fun because I eventually brought down Nagash. It took every Iron Jaw basically I had. But we just kept, next round, here come to orcs. We're gonna get that big dead guy. And you know, I got him down, we lost, and I was like, moral victory. It's a moral victory. So there you go. Fine. I walked away from that game feeling great. I took him down.
Okay. So fun lists. That's what we're aiming for here.
Yeah, so these might drift into being powerful. I think the important part is the attitude is sort of an amorphous thing. It's hard to define, but the idea is you don't sit there and ultra define the list. You put the models you want on, and most importantly, you have enough else going on in the game, right? That you keep it casual. There's also a thing like when people make mistakes in these games. Here's a very simple thing. People make mistakes because we're playing a relaxed game. If somebody makes mistakes and forgets something, and they're like, "Well, can I go back and do that?" Yes, every time. Again, there's just a general attitude about this, right? Like, yeah, cool, go do your thing, man. It's fine.
Yeah. If you lose, okay.
Who cares? Who cares?
Right.
So this is more about playing with models you want to play and having fun ideas. I think one of the interesting things that that comes out of this is it's fun to play with weird synergies that would never work in a normal tournament list. That's one of the fun things.
You'll see that in one of my lists.
Yeah, like there's lots of like lists that have like little fun, interesting synergies that would never work in a normal quote unquote tournament list. But there's a fun chance to play with them.
They're not reliable enough to be like a 4-game list.
Yeah, but they can still be super fun when it comes to just a cash list, right? And it's neat to like, oh, cool, you get to do these unusual things you wouldn't get to do otherwise. All right, so Tom and I both prepped up some lists. I have mine in some scrolls. Tom, would you mind if I kicked us off? I have a fun one I'd like to walk everybody through. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen here. And we're going to go to a very fun list. Scan it to the top. There we go. All right, lock on me. And share up. I call this first list, my first fun kooky list. I call this the Pied Piper. Okay?
Yep.
All right. So the Pied Piper utilizes 2 Skaven warlords. My leadership is 2 Skaven warlords, a Grey Seer, a Screaming Bell, rocking the Spell Mirror because we're out of Ulgu. The Spell Mirror, by the way, for those who don't know, I think is the best anti-magic item out there right now. It's anytime you get affected, the unit's affected by a spell, you roll a die.
Not only that unit or anything within 6 inches.
Correct. That unit or anything within 6 inches gets affected by a spell. You roll a die, and on a 5-up, you ignore the spell. right? So
like not only the damage, the effects, everything. Now the catch here is there's two catches. The bad catch is if you roll a 1 on any of those dice, it breaks and you can't use it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
The good catch is it says you may roll a dice whenever you're affected by a spell. And so you don't have to use it on stupid stuff. Like things like arcane bolt and stuff like that. If you're gonna take 1 mortal wound, like I'll eat that in the face.
Right.
But if somebody's dropping one of the big like neg-1 hit debuffs or whatever, I'm gonna block that. Like that's,
absolutely. I'll take a roll at it for Hand of Dust or for Curse of Years or whatever like that. Right. Yeah. Yep. So and I love the Screaming Bell in casual games. It's so much fun. It's completely random, kooky effect. And then of course our general is Archaon, the Lord of the Apocalypse, the Grand Marshal of the Apocalypse. Now, Archaon has a unique ability to activate the command abilities to allow for 1 command point. Basically, he can trigger off command abilities, right? Of all your chaos characters.
Right.
Okay. Well, Skaven moved into chaos, so we're going to have some fun on that, right? Now, what's really interesting about Skaven, especially like the Grey Seer, I contend that the Grey Seer is one of the great deals in current AOS. He's a 100-point hero who has very reliable spellcasting because he can reroll his spellcasts 84% of the time. And he has a pretty decent unique spell. And he also has which has like a 26-inch range, by the by. That's a fun thing. That surprises people because all the Skaven spells are either 13 or 26. So you can reach into enemy zones.
You used that on me last time I played, and I was like, what? And you're like 26. I was like, wow, okay. Yeah,
exactly. And he's also got a command ability. Actually, a quite good one. For what we're going to do in this army. And the Warlords obviously have a +1 attack command ability, pretty straightforward. And the Screaming Bell has a command ability that gives everybody who can see the bell gets +1 move and +1 bravery. Okay, every Skaven model. So the Grey Seers puts up a bubble that's a 26-inch range of, let's call it 50% battle shock immunity.
Sure.
Right? I mean, that's effectively what it is.
Yeah. On a 4+. Yeah.
Yeah. So I love Archaon leading a bunch of rats. It's the funniest thing to me. So to round this out, we go to 40 clan rats, 20 clan rats, and 20 storm vermin. There you go. We're going to flood the board with rats. We're rocking 120 rats, 20 of which are elite. Clan rats are true battle line units. So that satisfies your battle line. Obviously, by the way, I think I said it, but we're generic Chaos Allegiance here. The clan rats have an amazing ability to retreat and still charge. Yep. So they're an incredibly mobile, fast unit. They retreat like 8 inches, by the by, when they do that. Base move, and so you can just get these guys all over the place. Storm vermin are sort of your harder hitting unit. They can do some good work. Effectively, what you're doing is just super buffing rats here and trying to do work, right? Like through your Warlords, and your Grey Seer keeps them from running. He makes you pseudo battle shock immune. And that's what the Grey Seer does. And then the Bell makes them move faster because then they start moving 9 inches on the retreat, and stuff like that. So yeah, it also ups their bravery, also helping to do that. And then finally, for an endless spell, we've got the Aether Void Pendulum because it's a fun endless spell that I really like. And it actually pairs well with a lot of what you might want to be doing here anyways, because you don't want the spell to come back and hit your big units. So the Pendulum's sort of a safe one, and it aligns well with how Crack's Call works, which is what comes out of the Screaming Bell. So you're going to leave a sort of open line for Crack's Call to hit a unit, so you can just throw the Pendulum down that same line. And you have quite a lot of spellcasters here, right? The Seer, the Bell, and Archaon are obviously all spellcasters. So yeah, and this is basically 2,000 exactly. Yeah, there you go. This is a super fun force to me. It's just a rat flood. I call it the Pied Piper because it's obviously the Archaon leading this ridiculous horde of rats. So
no, I dig it.
That's my first one.
You played a mini version of this when we played.
Yes, I did. I played a 1500 point version with you, which you can also do, and I love this a lot.
Yep, that was fun. Okay, so I'm gonna go stay chaos as well. And this is my let the blood flow list.
Okay. Oh, good. That's so funny because I was literally going to make this list. I didn't get a chance to. Like, I was going to make a version of this.
Like, I talked about this with you. Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't talk beforehand about, like, what lists we were preparing. But yeah, we should also talk about why we think they're fun. The last one I think is fun because it's fun to lead our. It's super fun to play Archaon and a bunch of dumb rats. Like, that's why it's fun. And just crack the bell and let chaos flow. Because there's worlds where you can get up to, like, you can get clan rats with, like, +4 attacks.
Yep.
Because you can get, like, the bell to crack, or it's, 4 attacks. So you can get, like, the bell and then both warlords and things go nuts. So anyways, that's why I think that was fun.
Yep.
Okay.
So the core of this is Gore Pilgrims. Gore Pilgrims, for those of you that don't know, it like doubles the range of the Bloodsecrator, or it increases the range of the Bloodsecrator aura. And it's based around the Slaughter Priests who get rerolls on their prayers. It's obviously to fill that out. There's some Blood Reavers and Blood Warriors. This one is actually a little bit more optimized than I would probably run it if I was actually running like a true fun list. Like, this is the more optimized version. The less optimized version is I break out all those 40 blocks of Blood Reavers into individual groups of 10.
Yeah, sure.
To maximize the actual bodies, like the bodies that are dying to generate Blood Tithe.
Right.
And so this whole list is a Blood Tithe engine. Okay? Because what's happening is that just so filthy. Sorry. So the whole gimmick here is that all of the priests have, like, so you'll notice that obviously there are 3 Slaughter Priests, but Chaos Warshrines also have the priest keyword.
Yep. So
they get the priest, they get the prayers of the Khorne priest as well. So you end up with, despite only having 4 heroes, you end up with 6 prayers per turn. And of those prayers, the key one here, the one that we're most interested in, is Blood Sacrifice. And what it does is you pick either the priest or a Khorne unit in the army within 3 inches of that priest. They suffer D3 mortal wounds, and you generate a Blood Tithe point. And you're like, oh, that's pretty sweet. So the key is that all of your priests are praying and generating Blood Tithe.
And
so
just sacrificing Blood Reavers.
And no. So this is the douchey version of this list.
Oh, okay.
Because they dump all of those wounds into the Chaos Warriors.
Oh, okay, sure. Yeah. Who have a 5-up save against it. Yes.
And there are 3 War Shrines, so they have a 5-up, 6-up, 6-up, 6-up.
Okay. Sure.
So you're going to generate like 4 to 5 Blood Tithe per turn without anything dying.
Sure.
Yeah. And so like that's every other turn. Like, once things start dying, it's literally a bloodthirster every turn.
I would assume your plan then is summoning.
Yeah, and you're going to dump all of these Blood Tithe into summoning.
Right.
And just pop up a bunch of stupid units, and like you're summoning every turn, just more junk. And so those blocks of 40, you're just wanting to throw them forward. Like, you just want to clog up the board, basically. And you're going to drown them in blood of summoning.
Sure.
And at the same time, like, those War Shrines are generating like 3 4-ups or 3 6-up saves for all those Blood Reavers as well. Sure. So, and they're all Battle Shock immune because of the Bloodsecrator. And like, I don't know where you start with this thing. Like, sure. I don't like, and so this list is really fun in a what brings me the most joy with a list like this is something like Triumph and Treachery, or in teams, like doubles, because everybody has things that are dying that are generating Blood Tithe.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So,
so I want to address something real quick, because there's a lot of people in the comments who are like, Tom, this isn't a fun list. Like, this is it. There is a strong pushback on you. This is a fun list. Well, I think that's just it. Like, I would find this fun to play against. So yes, somebody mentioned that like Vince gets Tom. Said like, that's Tom true. Fun. This is Tom fun. It's Tom funnery. At the same time, like, it is a kooky list because, you're relying largely on like these War Shrines, which can be blown apart very easy. These Slaughter Priests who are 5-up saved guys who can be picked off really easily. Like, again, there's a reason you don't see this top tabling. Okay.
Right. Like this is not a top tier list, but this is a weird, fun, like gimmicky list.
Yes, it's a gimmicky list, and it's the kind of thing Tom likes. And I do enjoy playing against Tom when he plays lists like this. But this leads to a little important distinction, which is like you have to know what where your group draws the line, right? Like if there are certain groups who would consider this, not casual, and then there are certain groups who would certainly consider this casual. And like what the answer is to that, I don't care. I'm not looking for the objective truth of it, right? That's not what's relevant. It's the subjective experience of what your people have in your group. If you showed up at that, like Tom knows if he showed up at this, I'd be like, cool, let me get a fun list and play this, right? This sounds super cool. And so, it's just a question of knowing your group and knowing where to set the bar. And yeah, some of that is just sort of instinct and experience and what your group tends to like. And by the by, that can often be something you discover with experimentation. Like if you bring a list like this once and everybody in your group freaks out and hates it and says it's not fun, cool, you learned something. Don't do that again.
Yeah, this one's probably not coming back out if that happens.
Right. It's super easy. So yeah, but I love this, dude. I love the ridiculous I love the ridiculous blood sacrifices. I'm also gonna love watching you like accidentally murder all your Chaos War Shrines. Because they don't have the Gore Pilgrim reroll.
But so they have like 12 wounds. Like
no, I understand.
Dump all and they have 3/4 up or 3/6 up saves. These are all mortals. So like they can shake off a bunch of those wounds. Whatever. They themselves are just blood tied engines. That's all. Now, ironically, they can buff all of those huge blocks. So they can actually give them rerolls to hits. Like,
yeah, sure.
Because that's what they do.
Yep.
So, anyways, yeah, this is one of my weird, fun, kooky lists, and this is very Johnny. Like this is very combo oriented.
Super Johnny. Yes, this is like you're living hard, Johnny. You're living that 100% Johnny lifestyle right here with this one. But no, I dig it.
Right.
It's a clever interaction. It's a fun thing you wouldn't normally get to do, and you get to go nuts with summoning. Like as someone who's played a big multiplayer game where nearly everybody at the table was using some kind of like summoning engine army, it can actually be fun as long as you know that's what you're getting into, right?
Right.
Like where everybody just keeps summoning and stuff is just dying massively just through the chipper, right? Just through the chipper shredder, and yet new stuff keeps popping up. Like again, we were playing it cash. We're not playing for blood here. You know what I mean? Like, as it were, I understand the irony with corn.
This list is.
Yeah, sure. There's no trophy at the end of the game. Is my point, right? There you go.
So here's my fun list one.
I like it. All right, very good. That's a good first list, Tom. It really plants your flag as to what Tom finds fun. I
mean, I could bring a bunch of KO, but nobody wants that.
Sure.
I mean, now they might. That's the KO list technically qualify as fun in the new world. Go ahead.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's totally true. There's definitely, and that was part of my point. Like there are many quote unquote fun or cash or whatever. I don't want to get hung up on semantics. The last thing I want is a semantic argument of versions of those of like top tier armies, blah, 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 top tier armies. Right. Yeah. It's not like by virtue of the fact you're Legions of Nagash, you automatically get to be one of the best armies in the game. There are plenty of less tuned versions of undead armies, right? Okay. All right. Time. I think it's time. List 2 from me. It's hashtag 3 mag meta. That's right. You thought it was dead. No, it's back. In many ways, it never left. So this is hashtag 3 mag meta. Now, the Magma Dragon had a slight price increase in the last update. So this is, by the way, this is Allegiance Destruction. What do we got here? We've got an Auric War Boss. This is Gur alignment because, of course, it's Gur alignment. And we got a boss with a Griff Feather Charm. He's going to be on, I didn't mark it here, but he's on a pig. So he's a little faster. So he'll be like a 10 or 11 inch movement. I don't remember how fast the pig is, but he's fast enough. And we got 3 tenors of Oryx who were nice enough to go down to 80 points each and be battle line. So there you go. 30 Orcs with Choppas. And then most importantly, 3 Magma Dragons. Total cost, 2,000 points. Booyah! On the nose. Nailed it. So I'm all about this list because this is just
3 mag meta.
hashtag 3 mag meta, baby. There it is. This is an easy list to paint. Like, you can knock this out fast. This is 31 orcs and 3 giant dragons. Beautiful.
I'm in.
I love everything about this list. It's simple. It is, if yours was pure Johnny, right? Like, there is no finer expression of Timmy and the Timmy way than this list. Than just like,
that's true. Oh yeah. Yeah.
3 dragons breathing fire. That's it. Yeah, and as a quick comment, these are the stupidest looking real models. I would never use the real models for my Magma Dragons. There are 100 companies that make super awesome, often cheap, giant dragons. Buy any of them. Sorry. Like, I normally love using the real GW models, but Magma Dragons are terrible. As I've said many times, they just look like pet iguanas. They do not look like the incarnate of fire and death that this thing is supposed to represent. So, yeah, a simple list, but it's fun because you have 30 dumb orcs and 3 giant insane dragons. I would point out that, like, your total wounds is 96. 60 of your wounds is tied up in these 3 models. Like, that's it. This is 2/3 of your wounds in the list in these 3 models.
That's delightful.
Yeah.
I see your orky list.
Uh-huh.
And let me raise you one.
Okay.
Since we're in destruction.
Sure.
You
may want to scroll down just a little.
Yeah, I'm going to. What just happened? Oh well. Okay, here we go. So the spiders are coming. Here we go, folks. You thought I wouldn't do Spider Fang. You don't know me. 3 Grot big bosses on gigantic spiders, 2 Arachnaroks. Anchoring the whole thing is a big old rogue idol.
Sure.
And then 6 packs of 5 Grot spiders each. You asked Tom, why don't you go with larger packs of Grot spiders? Because they have Bravery 4.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And they're going to explode when anything touches them ever.
So why not just lean into it? Yeah.
Yeah, like lean into it and let them explode and run MSU on these guys. Because then you don't have the problem of like getting the bases in. Each of the gigantic spiders, what you're gonna want is they're gonna project an 8-inch bubble with which they make the bites of all of the other spiders crit on 5-ups, or not crit. Trigger their mortal wounds on 5-ups instead of 6-ups.
It's effectively critting, sure.
Yeah. And so what this allows them to do is that if you have multiple big bosses, you can spread them out and then have multiple circles, but you need more command points for that. So my response is to get the Aether Court brooch. So occasionally you'll get to like double proc command points, like with multiple ones, which is why I went with that item.
Sure. Can I tell a quick aside about command points real quick? In the game I played this last weekend, we had a Stormcast player at the table who was playing Tempest Lords. Okay. Mm-hmm. The command point Fisher, and they had the Aether Quartz brooch as well. Yep. Okay. Yep. He ended he was aggressively using command points.
12 command points.
He ended the game with 5.
Oh man. Still
at the bottom of 4. And he wasn't like holding back. It's insane. Right. Anyways, just a slide aside because you mentioned.
So if you want to generate command points, it can be done.
Yeah.
So I went with all the spiders. I went with the Rogue Idol. So the funny thing about those Arachnaroks is they have 2 casts each. So they're 280 points for a 2-cast wizard. And so the Rogue Idol, like I waffled between doing 3 Arachnaroks or 2. But like at 3, I just ran out of spells. Because like they have between 2 of them, they have 3 spells. They can cast 4 times and they have 3 spells. If I went to 6, like I'm literally retrying all in like a bunch of endless spells every time, then I lose bodies and everything. So I went with 3 Arachnaroks here. I'm sorry, 2 Arachnaroks. That Rogue Idol, by the way, gives them all like if they're nearby the Rogue Idol, gives them +1 to cast.
Right.
So they're like forecast at +1, and I made room for 140 points of endless spells. So give me a nice like smattering of like scythes and other stuff. Maybe run. I might run Life Swarm with this list to regen the spiders, to regrow spiders.
Sure.
You could realistically, anything that those are near, regrow like a spider per unit. That's not too bad. So this might be a list that I would use Life Swarm in. But yeah, it's just kind of a fun, kooky,
No, I love it. This would be great. I wouldn't mind play, other than the fact that spiders creep me out. You could come into my house with it because my wife would immediately break my models. Yeah, she'd come down with a hammer and solve this problem.
Yeah, she's threatened my models before if I show up with the spiders again.
Yeah.
That means I guess my paint job's good enough.
There you go.
I'll take the compliment. Anyways, so this is my fun destruction list.
I dig it. I dig it, man. I like this one a lot. It's fun because it uses cool models that don't see the table enough in all the Spider Riders and the big Arachnaroks. They're beautiful models. Those, I have despite the funny thing, I have spiders, like the Arachnarok is just a gorgeous model, right? I think that's not up for discussion.
Yep.
And it has a lot of fun little, interactions it can do. So that's super cool. Yeah, I dig this. I dig this a lot. And it's going to be that you have such a huge number of like who gives a hoot about drops in this kind of crap in this kind of format, right? So but you have such a big number of units. It's honestly like you can compete in a more cash game with unusual objectives and stuff like that. You'll be able to play that game.
And by the way, almost everything here has a ranged attack.
Yeah, it's true.
Because all those Spider Riders have bows. They're terrible. But they all have, I think, like 2 shots each at 5s and 5s or 5s and 4s. And like they all have movement 8 and they ignore terrain. Like almost everything in this list ignores terrain except for the Rogue Idol.
Right.
So like it's actually a surprisingly mobile MSU force.
Nice.
Yeah.
I dig it. All right. So I'll go up next. By the way, several of my it's going to be rats, something else, rats, something else, rats. That's how I've bookended this, just so everybody's on the level with with my take on this.
Sure.
I gotta live where I live, and I'm a rat at heart. All right, so this is Thanquol's Horde. My like of using Thanquol. I accidentally kept the spell mirror when I read it because I was building these lists today on the road, so I just strike that. Ignore that. So here we have the Warlord, who's the general with the Crown of Conquest, the thing that makes it so people within 6 inches are immune to Battle Shock.
Yep.
And we got Thanquol. Thanquol has a really wonderful command ability that doesn't require him to be the general, where he can basically give units of a 6-up ward save or 5-up if they have more than 13 models. So this is called, let's take advantage of that with 40 clan rats, 40 clan rats, 40 clan rats, and 40 storm vermin.
I'm noticing a pattern.
Well, this is like maxing the numbers, right? Like this is just the Horde, right? Because this is 160 rat bodies on the table. This is like 8th edition style rat bodies. And every one of these effectively he can give that ward save to, right?
Yep.
Or the Warlord can buff, like depending on what you need to do. You don't have any extra command generation here, but there you go. You could if you wanted to change stuff. And then we've got a couple Wind Mortar teams because I think those are very useful. They're a fun thing. They help you counter Horde. You use them to hit enemy hordes who might have as many numbers as the Storm Vermin, because all you need to do is drop their number below the Storm Vermin so the Storm Vermin get their full bonuses.
Sure.
Right? And then the Warp Grinder team is going to take one of these 40 years of clan rats and go off table and just pop up somewhere late game for kooky fun. Right? Like, because the fact that you've got like 40 models just ready to tunnel up somewhere. Now you don't get to control that, right? You have to roll and you get a 3-up. It's old style, popping up. But nonetheless, it's still something that your opponent has to think about and can be very useful in a big, sort of chaos game. So, and again, you got the Screaming Bell for all of its fun. I like this a lot. I love Thanquol as a general. He's always one of my favorite classic characters. And I think that, I think this is a pretty straightforward, simple Skaven list, but it's a fun way to use Thanquol's command ability to its absolute nonsense, Just,
Sure.
because these rats just then become so much tougher with basically a 5-up feel no pain save on top of that, right?
Yep.
It makes a big difference. So yeah, there you go. I love it because it also can do fun stuff like the Screaming Bell can give thankful bonuses to cast, and he's a
Yep.
multicaster. It can do stuff like add extra attacks, and like the trick is you ring the bell first and see what happens. And like
Yep.
if the bell rings and hits the +1 attack, and that touches the Storm Vermin, you switch tactics and you go to the Warlord being the one who buffs the Storm Vermin. Like you keep him, obviously, he's going to be near enough to as many blocks here as possible to keep them in Battle Shock immunity. You switch tactics, and instead of going defense, you pivot and go offense, right? So, so that way, suddenly your Storm Vermin are just making an ungodly number of attacks, and like at that point, when they're making 3 or 4 attacks, they will just chop through. I mean, they'll chop through anything, because it's they're hitting on 3s, wounding on 3s, neg 1 rend, and just there's like 120 attacks. They're just so ultra killy at that point. So yup, there you go. That's Thanquil's horde. I wanted to give a nice tribute to Thanquil. He's still around, and good on him. All right, what do you got for us next, Tom?
Okay, so let's go with the Legion of the Eternal King, which so this is a call out to the Shadow Phoenix King, so the Malekith merged elf horde.
Yep.
Sure. So I wanted something that was like elves, just all of the elves.
Yeah, sure.
And so I went with so I have, we often talk about like centers of power.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And you can very quickly see how this is kind of divvied up. So you end up with a 1 center of power is going to be the Anointed, and 2 blocks of 60 Phoenix, 30 Phoenix Guard spread between. So you have like 2 anvils that are Battle Shock immune if that Phoenix is alive, and he's like hard. He's hard. The next center of power is going to be this little mobile Harrier Force, which is 2 sets of Reavers and a Sky Warden. The Sky Warden is Swifthawk agents. For those, it's the flying boat. If you put the hero, which is the Sky Warden, in the flying boat, he has a banner that gives a passive +1 to wound, like blanket +1 to the army. And so their bows, like 3 shots a Reaver, so they are on +1 to wound, which is nice. Originally, I had like more of a Swifthawk heavy force, and I just couldn't bring myself to do it. Like I was gonna just stick with it, and I'm just like I can't. Like I wanted to, I just, even for a fun list, I'm just like, nope. Like without the battalion, there's not a viable list there. Like I hate to say that, but it's true. The next center of power is the Sorceress with 10 Dark Shards. And she's going to be my reliable endless spellcaster.
Okay.
Because she'll sacrifice those Dark Shards 1 at a time to kick out to give +2 to cast, and then she'll spit out some endless spells. And I would have probably 2 to 3 with 120 points. So I don't know. Like, and when I say the reason why I do this is like I just grab a couple. Like there are no strategies this is built around. Like I might look at this and go, you know what? I never want those Phoenix Hordes to die. It's going to be the Life Swarm. Like we're doing that. Like,
sure.
Those models are never, like those units are never moving. And then obviously the Lore Master and the High Mage are additional casters to back these up. This will give you 3 wizards for your Frost Art.
Yep.
And he's going to project a bubble, and he's going to be at +1 to unbind. The High Mage is like a ward save, 6+ ward save. That Lore Master is just going to buff up that Frost Art and give you some options. I'd probably give the Frost Heart an item. I don't know. Like I would just probably grab something. This is generic order. I'm not too concerned with, like what this ends up looking like. Like I would just I might roll randomly for traits and like, or maybe give the +1 to attack, for his halberd or something. I don't know.
Sure.
Yeah, like I'm just not concerned.
Yeah, I mean that's what's fun. Another thing that's interesting about these lists is that like when you do a lot of stuff like this, since they're often light on battalions, it's a chance to try fun and unusual artifacts. I've found that like I am usually exploring the new realm artifacts with lists like this.
Yep.
Okay. So like I played a version of the Skaven list I just showed, and I gave the Thermal Rider cloak to the Screaming Bell because it made me laugh to have the Screaming Bell flying around the board. Like it was a comical image to me of like I put this tiny cloak like a flag on this giant Screaming Bell, and suddenly it's just like wee around the board. I didn't have to keep Skaven near it to keep it mobile.
You doing that, by the way,
Mhm.
gave me the idea of like maybe that's the right move for my Slaughter Queen.
Sure,
to move it up to like a 10 base fly movement.
Yeah.
You know, to fix the mobility of the Slaughter Queen.
Yep.
Which is funny, like seeing you do that when you did that is fun. I was like, interesting.
Yeah. I love that Thermal Rider cloak. It's one of my favorite items out of there because it's so fun to make things that nobody expects to fly. Like it's just a comical thing you can do. So yeah, there you go. No, I dig this. This is great. It's a great smattering across the elves. Lots of different little interactions. Yeah, I like it. Like it's clearly got some fun stuff going on. I mean, I don't know how fun it is to beat on 60 Phoenix Guard, but you know, they're there. It's okay. It's not like just because they're good at being defensive, you shouldn't play them. And you know, you didn't like build some horrible just
like, it's not like a Nurgle grindy list or anything.
Exactly. Exactly what was in my head, Tom. All right. So next up, I have a list that some people asked me about because this is basically the list I painted in my Army in a Week project. Okay. So this is the Greywater Fastness Fun Line, as I call it. So a week after saying shooting is dead in AOS 2, let's talk about an all shooting army. Okay. Everybody here was Kung Fu fighting. And by Kung Fu fighting, I mean shooting guns. So, our leaders are a Lord Nader and a Free Guild General. Technically, there's the Celestial Huracanum as well. I just didn't select the one that has the dude on top, but it's got the dude on top, obviously. So it's got the wizard on it. We got 3 tenors of handgunners, and then we have a Hellstorm, 3 steam tanks, and an organ gun, bringing us to 2,000 exactly. Now, reasons why this army is fun to me. So let me explain interactions real quick. The Ordinator, like when you set up, you're going to set up with the Ordinator dead set in the middle of the 3 tanks and the 2 war machines, right? He's going to be kind of a center point of a big like 5-pointed star. And so he buffs them all in the first round, giving them all +1 to hit. The Hurricanum is off to the side. You're going to spread out the handgunners. So it's bonusing all of those. And the general is there to then bonus these units of handgunners as well. So pushing basically everybody to be on 2s all the time, right?
Yeah.
Because you're not going to move these guys. These handgunners are actually just sniper machines. This list is inspired by my old like 3rd edition 40K Imperial Guard list, which is what the other thing I would call this. I'd call this list 3rd edition Imperial Guard, where I just like had random dudes where there was one useful weapon in the group of guys with las guns. Like, you know, there's like 9 idiots who don't matter, and then 1 decent gun in the unit. Right. So it's the same thing with the handgunners. There's like 9 regular guns that are fine, but they're super short range, so it's often not going to matter. But a sniper rifle that is just dead killy because it's going to be on like 2s and 2s. And neg 1/2 damage. So this is your character killer right here. And the key is each steam tank has one of those as well, by the by. So like you're putting 6 of those sniper rifles on the table. Okay. So like all hitting on 2s. These will be 2s and 3s because they don't get the wound buff, but these will be 2s and 2s. So you know, when you have a problem character, you can neg 1 me all day long. Like the reality is these sniper rifles actually hit on 1s. Because of the thing is base, like it's base 4, 3 from the handgunner's own ability, 2 from the Huracanum, 1 from the general buff, neg 1. So the point is it stays on 2s. So even with the neg 1 from the Lookout Sir, you can still pop. You can take that Lookout Sir and you can shove it. I don't care. And yeah, and then your Huracanum can belt out the big 6 mortal wound, you know, or not 6 mortal wound thing. Sorry, the big lightning storm rain. of like, 1 or D3 or D6 mortal wounds. The rocket battery is funny to me because every time I use this rocket battery, I don't know how familiar people are with the rocket battery. When it starts hitting on 2s, it's super scary. Okay.
Sure.
Which can happen in this list. Like you're gonna level something the first time this thing shoots at it. Because it's gonna be on 2s between all the bonuses here. The problem with it is, have you ever looked at the Hellstorm rocket battery's damage chart?
It's like a D6 per missile, right?
It's a D6 per missile, but which makes it unbelievably devastating, right? Because like when you rain down on something, hitting on 2s, wounding on 3s, neg 2 ren D6 damage, 3d6 damage is scary as all get out. Right. Now you're not going to hit with all 3 of those every time. Who cares?
Sure.
The point is that the damage, the star on the damage thing for the Hellstorm is based on crew. Okay.
Yep.
So, like, if you lose 1 crew member, the missiles go to D3 damage. If you lose 2 crew members, the missiles go to 1 damage. So you still get 3 shots, but they each do 1 damage. It becomes useless so fast. And obviously, it's so easy to pick off War Machine crew, right? Like, there's so many random things that just do a D3 mortal wound.
Celestin Prime or Star Drakes are like, you don't have siege.
Or anything Nurgle or whatever. Yeah, I mean, they just, whatever. You're going to get like 1 good round out of this before crew dies, but such is life. And then the organ gun's just there to be like sitting on the front. I love driving these tanks forward. They can all combo charge stuff. And like, you can literally just ram 3 tanks down someone's throat because they do mortal wounds on a 2-up when they hit. Yep. And so they are like, they can actually be quite devastating when they just all drive into something. Between their sniper rifles, their machine guns, and the fact that they have a cannon, they can actually be really devastating. Again, they'll hit on, like, depending on what's around them. As they drive out, what actually happens is they drive out and this dude follows them along. The Lordinator, like, he's their sort of foot escort. He walks around behind them. That's why he's not the general. And he has the Wand of Restoration, which is a goofy item out of the Realm of Life. Okay. Yep. That, like, every hero phase, you can pick a model within 6 inches and heal it a wound. Okay.
Okay.
And all of the steam tanks can self-repair. Like, the engineer can start healing as well. So, like, the goal is that you're just, like, constantly mid-battle doing, like, field repairs on your steam tanks to keep them up to where they're, effective at shooting. And then, you have this little line back here that shoots off. I mean, it is a gun line. It is the purest expression of a gun line ever. But it's also fun because you get to drive tanks around in AOS and ram into people, which is pretty cool. I like ramming tanks into people. It makes me laugh. So, I mean, nothing in here is tough. All this stuff will just get pasted by anything that puts pressure on it. Like, this is an anvil-less list in the truest sense of the traditional gun line, right? If anybody looks at these handgunners sideways, they all die. Your steam tanks, they're on a 3-up, but like, okay. I mean, like, any concerted anvil will beat these things into parts. Or sorry, any concerted hammer will beat these things into parts pretty fast. But I really love playing this. It makes me smile. So there you go. Oh, and it's gray water fastness. Just to talk about what that does real quick. All 5 of these War Machines get to check every hero phase, and on a roll of a 6, they get a free fire. What's cool about that is if you do it on the steam tank, it gets to fire everything, like including the sniper rifle and the machine gun. All guns, weapons free. Like, it's just like, it's such a, like, I'm not gonna lie, I feel like Adama in the pilot episode of Battlestar Galactica when there's something I want to kill when I'm playing this list, and I'm like, that thing, all guns, weapons free, let's go, and just blow it down.
Delightful.
Absolutely, like, just the fire, the hail of bullets and cannon shells that go in the air, just you just watch things explode. It's great fun. It's one of those things that's weird because, like, so this is one of those, like, interpretations of fun. Like, some people really have a problem with shooty armies, even when they have like such a massive Achilles heel like this one does, like nothing in that list is hard to kill. Nothing in that list is tough. It's going to be very hard for that list to win any objective-based game. Like, on face, it is a loser. Okay? Right?
Yep.
Like, by all definitions of competition, it is a losing list.
Yeah.
And yet, right? People will complain as they beat it. Right? Like, they will be winning and complaining because you shot down their toys. There is some people are very sensitive to this. There's sort of a psychological feeling because of the non-interactivity, seemingly, of shooting. Right? Where, like, I get to reach out and project this power and blow your unit off the table with you having nothing to say about it except an armor save. Never mind the fact that shooting only gets to happen during my turn, whereas with combat, it's happening during both turns. So combat units instinctively have an advantage, like innately have an advantage because they get to do, per battle round, they get 2 times to do their thing, whereas your shooting units only get 1. So never mind the fact that shooting units have that built-in power balance to their power projection, which is that they can only do it once per battle round. Some people just hate shooting. And that's fair. So like, if I just don't take this list, if I know that those people are in the group, but I think that like people's brains kind of turn off and they have this instinctive emotional gut reaction to it often. I mean, my answer would be lean into it, go charge them, blow their stuff up. Like none of what I have in that list is like a 30 block of handgunners, right? It's like something actually semi-difficult to chew through.
There are no 30 blocks of Phoenix Guard there.
No, yeah, exactly, right? Like, it's all stuff built on it, like hanging by a thread. Its existence hangs by a thread. But, it's real scary when, 3 steam tank cannons shoot off and their machine guns all rattle to life and a hellstorm levels, and then the Huracan starts raining down mortal wounds and sniper rifle fire incoming. Like, it is purposely trying to recreate my 40K list, right? The Huracan is the best I could do for the old sort of Basilisk tank. I think that's what that is. So there you go. Or maybe it's a Demolisher. I'd have to think about what I think it is more, but it's one of the two. Anywho, that's my list. All right. So there you go. The fun line. The funnest of fun lines.
So I'm also going to have a here comes the fun, here comes the party list, and somebody's like, that's not a party. Like, that's not fun. So here's my Tom's fun, not fun list.
So this is your Iron Man and Avengers one. I'm bringing the party to you.
Party to you. Yeah, that's
good. How is that a party exactly? Yeah.
Yes. So, here's a 1-drop.
Okay. Sure.
Because why not? Like, you know what? Dark Elves don't get enough play. Sure. That's what I'm gonna say. And like, I would bring this because it would be a fun, like, semi-casual list that has 3 wizards all that can cast at +2 with cogs and shoot across the board at the top of 1, and 30 executioners that can chop everything to bits with 2 mortal wounds on 6s, and a bunch of blackguards, and then all of these dark shards can, like, you can have like one of these dark shards behind each of these blackguard units, and because of the way that the rules run, like, they gain the ability to like count as more models and all that.
Yeah, because of the Darkling. You're saying this is obviously Darkling Covenant allegiance. Yeah.
Yep. And so like
they get to basically count other units of that type as theirs for numbers.
Yep. And so the sorceress is on a Black Dragon. It's your general, possibly Swift, Shatterhound. They have some neat abilities to give reroll wounds in there. And
what does the Shadow Shroud ring do? I don't know the Dark.
That means that, like, you can't target them, so you can choose around that's just an untargetable. Like, in your hero, like, you can't shoot my
cool.
hero.
So it's like the Ink Cloud out of Edneth, kind of.
Yep. It's like the Ink Cloud, and possibly Swift is the -1 to hit with all attacks.
Yep.
I'm doing all this on the dragon, by the way, because it's a 5-up save dragon.
Sure.
Yeah, and so like it has to have other defenses. The Anklet of Epiphany, if this sorceress is near a piece of terrain, she adds 6 inches to the range of spells.
Okay.
So, and then I have cogs in here because of cogs. I'd consider if I was feeling a little bit more saucy, I would drop 10 dark shards out of this list, out of this lineup, and pick up 100 more points of endless spells. Like that's the way to mess with this. Needless to say, it's a 1-drop either way. And it's not a competitive list. Like, it's not going to win tournaments probably. But it's Dark Elves and it's fun. It's thematic and
it is a super classic Dark Elf list. Like, that is what I'll say. You've got the leader on Black Dragon, 2 supporting sorceresses, your big blocks of infantry, and supporting archers. Yes. This is there's a reason the Thrall Warhost is constructed like it is, right? Yeah. Because it is the classic Dark Elves. Like, if you love the classic Darkling Covens, I think this is a great list for that. Like, it brings those all these are still great looking models too. That sorceress is still one of the better sculpts of sort of spellcasters, period. It gets used in a ton of different versions. It's fantastic. The Black Dragon holds up. Yeah, the Executioners and the Blackguard are awesome sculpts, obviously. Dark Shards I could take or leave, but they're fine. There you go. Yeah,
and so, this is my new, fun, weird... I would run this. I'd put this on the table and, I'd throw down and have some fun. And, it's not super powerful. There's scary stuff here.
Sure. I mean, yeah, Executioners are not to be trifled with. Yes.
Right.
They are brutal.
But yeah, it's also not a hyper hard competitive list.
No,
and the cogs obviously makes up for the lack of mobility.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's funny how between the artifacts of the realms and the endless spells, you can often achieve you can sort of cover in some of these fun lists for things that would otherwise make it kind of crippling to even play, right? If you literally just had to march across the board at your normal speed, it could be just the point where okay, I get it.
And by the way, this list is optimized to play with realm spells.
Sure.
Because I can sacrifice models for that +2 to cast and land most realm spells.
Right. Yeah, well, and that's a good point about your previous spider list, is that's the value of that spider list goes up a lot if realm spells are in play, because you have so many double casters who can then take advantage of those with bonuses, right? Yep.
So anyways, this is my fun, weird thing.
Nice. I dig it. All right.
Now, but that said, some people might not like 1-drops. They're really?
I don't think there's something innately bad about a 1-drop. Okay, it's fine. It's fine. All right. Final Skaven list. Here we go. Surprise! This is called Surprise Rats. Okay.
Sure.
So, here we go. We're into Ulgu again because why not? There's no reason for that, but I just like being from Ulgu. Once again, we've got the Warlord. I actually don't think the Crown of Conquest would be what I'd choose here, but whatever. You could have it, and it's fine. It's just there's probably better ones. So our leader pack here, crap pack, the rat pack, is the Warlord, the Seer. We've talked about both of those. And we got our old friend, the Warpnaw Vermin Lord, who I love. He is my new favorite friend, as well as the Arch Warlock. Maybe one of the greatest rats in the world. This dude's a double caster at 140 points. This guy is...
You're just asking to get him nerfed. Stop talking about...
Stop
talking about those rats.
Look, they already nerfed Skyer, so it's fine. Anyways, I love this dude. He's got a great spell. He's in power armor. He has power armor Mark 0.5. I love everything about him. Okay, so then down here we got 40, 40, and 20. Sort of my standard setup for battle line to fulfill. I truly believe in my heart of hearts that clan rats are one of the best battle line in the game. At 40 for 200 points, with some kind of save that can be okay in certain situations and the ability to retreat and charge, I stand behind these guys. I think they are, and just they are cheap as dirt. The fact that I have 150 painted is not also might influence that decision. So we got 2 Poison Wind Mortar teams, a Warp Grinder team, and 6 Storm Fiends. Now,
checks out.
It checks out. Yeah, exactly. So some of this is like you saw before, but there's a slightly different twist on this, obviously. So the Warp Grinder team is going to take the unit of 20 clan rats.
Yep.
Okay? And they're going to go off somewhere.
Yep.
The 6 Storm Fiends are going to have 1 drill guy, and the rest are going to be seasoned to taste, whatever. You can run a melee pack or a shooty pack. Okay. So this and this are off table. Your Storm Fiends are off table. Your Vermin Lord can also take a unit off table. She's going to take one of the 4 years of Clan Rats off table. Now, unlike the drill team, the grinder, he gets to decide when he pops back up. Right? And so you basically have 3 reasonable off-table threats that can pop up and do work. And then holding your line is a big string of, like, if you keep the crown, of 40 Battle Shock immune Clan Rats, right, who are around the Warlord, the Grey Seer, and the Arch Warlock, as well as your Wind Mortars that sit behind them, right? You've got the Balewind Vortex here to push either your Arch Warlock to being a triple caster and pushing him to a 2-up save, which makes him just hard as a coffin nail to pull off the board. And it also makes it so his like Warp Storm, which already has a fantastic range, is even farther. Or you can push the Grey Seer. You can also summon it with the Seer, obviously, right? Because he's got to reroll at it. Because he gets to roll twice to cast his spells. If he chooses rocks, gotta get them rocks. So he then can have a 32-inch range with his spell. So fun all around as far as that goes. And then obviously the whole goal is you just pop up all over and surround the enemy, take them, you're hitting them from behind, you're hitting them from the side. It's rats everywhere. It's surprise rats. Surprise rats. I stand behind the Wind Mortar teams as just fluff sort of fill out in most of these lists because it's a really solid item. It's great for cracking enemy hordes, right? Yeah. And I think it's a good weapon team. So there you go. That's that list. Again, 2,000 on the nose. So there you go. And 171 wounds. A lot of wounds. A lot of wounds. And just a huge amount of mobility. Like, this list is mobility city. Between 3 units being off table, between everybody's ability to retreat and charge, right? It's crazy mobility. So
it is.
There you go. That's surprise rats. That's one of my favorites. I really like that one because I love having so many rats off the table, just gnawing and burrowing up through the world to come in and surprise your enemies. And I think that Warp Gnaw is super good. I stand behind that dude. He's worth the 3.
I don't disagree.
Right? Between his off table, he's got a good spell that'll like kill important standard bearers and musicians and stuff. And he's tough enough. And he hits like a Mack truck if he gets into things unmolested, because his halberd is like 5 damage. It's like the beetle on a Lariel if he's in undamaged. So yeah. All right, Tom, what do you got for us?
Well, technically, you told me to do 4 lists, and that's 4 lists. But
I did tell you to do 4.
Yep, but in the last 30 seconds,
you wrote your all Swift Talk lists to appease the commenters. Yes, no, that's good of you.
Yeah, like I literally just 280, 600.
Oh, real quick, let me comment on this. Somebody mentioned that I could have used gutter runners in my list. You're absolutely right. Like, you can play around with numbers because gutter runners also ambush, right? Yep. Like in the same way. So you're absolutely right. I could have included those 2. I didn't. I constructed a list in that way. You could absolutely play around with those numbers and have some gutter runners too. I have had an Eshin bug up my Tookus for so long, like to do an all Eshin army. I just don't know when I would do it, but I really, really want to do all ninja rats, like a ninja rat army. And I'd do them all. It would be a redo from the start, and it would be all Storm Shadow. So all whites, all white grays. No black outfits. Okay, anyways, go ahead.
Okay. I'm just checking the points on this real quick. 300. Okay, so I would probably do something like that.
There you go. This is the list. This is about, in my opinion, this is one of the keys to casual gaming. This is about the amount you should generally think about your list as you're constructing it.
Yeah. So this is my Swift Talk agents. because why not? I would run 3 Sky Wardens because I'm a douchebag. And so that would give me that gives me 3 of the +1 to wound banners that currently in the rules all stack. So everything within an 18-inch radius has +3 to wound.
I like it.
Okay, so we're going to start there. +3 to wound for everything. So all those bows on the Reavers and Spire Guard are wounding on 2s, like just across the army. So any of that stuff that's hitting. The Reavers are the 10 Reavers are pumping out like 30 shots. Each of the Spire Guard are pumping out 30 shots. The High Warden is going to be my hero of choice because I'm going to use. He's going to be my general with like the legendary fighter with the +1 attack, and I'm going to give him the blade or the magical item that on a wound rolls of 6 or more does immortal.
Yep.
So suddenly he'll do mortals on 3-ups with his attacks.
Okay. Sure. Why not?
And then I just added in a Drakeseer because I want a wizard. I like his spell. Like he has like an endless mortal wound spell.
Yep.
Like he was one of those that like will keep generating mortal wounds like forever. In his base spell. He's a double caster. I think this one's the double caster. I'd end up with either this one or the 320.1 with the dispel. I don't know. And I'd throw in some endless spells for the fun of it. And by the way, I would rationalize this guy being in the army because all the Spire Guards have dragons on their shields.
Mm-hmm.
And I would paint like the dragon on the shield like my Drakeseer. So then it's like the army, you know. Yeah. So there you go.
Nice. Nice.
And I probably, yeah, whatever. It works. It's fun. It's a bunch of bodies and a bunch of elves are just going to die en masse. But that's where we're at with Swift Talk, folks. This is what's happening. Exploity. This is as exploity as you can get with Swift Talk.
Sure.
It's +3 to wound.
I mean, okay.
Yeah,
that's fine.
I mean, I could drop the Drakeseer for another 30 Spire Guard. I guess that's gonna happen.
I like where your head's at with that. You got to have the big cool model, right? And the Drakeseer's that.
Yep.
All right, this is good. So that's our formal lists. Let's talk about some other stuff we would do. Like let's get off of so we'll move away from the formal list and let's close this out. Let's just talk about some other small, sort of like the small interactions, the small ideas of fun lists. I mentioned the Eshin thing. That's one I've always wanted to do. I love the aesthetic of the army. I don't know what it is. Like I've never put together a formal list around it. Obviously, you've got the big, I mean, it's such a tight army, right? Like that is to say, you've basically got gutter runners and night runners who are almost the same price with their horde discounts, by the way.
Yeah.
Like 20, like when you scale it out to sort of full, they're basically the same price. Which means you're pretty much going to just use all gutter runners, right? And your whole army is going to be this weird ambushing 20 packs of murder ninja rats that come in off table round one.
Why not?
But like, I think that'd be really fun to, and obviously Eshin allies with all the rest of the Skaven. So you can still get into your other, you've got 400 points of other stuff to play with. And you're going to have no problem with the 1 in 4 rule, right? Because, between like if you want a couple Night Runner, which by the way I would have a couple Night Runners just because they can get out there and do that pre-screen type of behavior, so they can keep people out. They can sort of really screw up enemy ambushing and dropping and stuff like that. They can keep it so you still have places to bring in your gutter runners because they can't counter drop against you, as it were, right? And I think that the Vermin Lord Deceiver still has one of my favorite spells in the game. Like when I look at what I would bring in, it's just bringing in probably a couple allied spellcasters. Our old friend, the Arch Warlock, would probably show up again because I love that dude. He shows up in most of my lists. I did pick up an original like metal Ikit Claw. He's like, there's maybe 3 models I will buy in metal, and he's one of them. Because he's so beautiful and perfect. He is the Horned Rat's greatest gift to us.
Him, Khalida, and the Chaos Lord on Demonic Mount.
Well, the Chaos Sword and Demonic Mount I would take in Finecast. You were right with the first two, for sure.
Yeah.
But yes, Kalita and Kalita, the Arch Warlock, and I don't even know if I could find a third. There you go. Yeah, those are the two. Not much metal I would prefer to get, other than like old Hammer stuff. You know what I mean? That they never remade. So like anything Dogs of War, for example.
Yeah.
Although like I've got a Borgio, but the Besieger that I've been wanting to repaint up as just a fun Empire General sometime if I ever have the chance. I love that dude with his giant oversized mace. All right, what about you? What's a couple fun things that you've wanted, like little fun interactions or funny lists that you think go well in sort of Garage Hammer? While you're ruminating on that, real quick, I didn't mention anything Slanesh tonight. Okay,
right.
Somebody might be wondering why. Because we're doing Slanesh next week. So there was going to be a whole next week's show is going to be dedicated to the Dark Princess. So that's the only reason there's no Slanesh this week. So look forward to getting into it next week.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's good. I just had a list. Vince, why did you ruin this?
Sorry, man.
Zangor. I would
sure.
I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do an all Zangor force at some point. And so like everything is converted Zangor. So I'll have like, if I do Chaos Warriors, they'll have like Zangor heads, and I'll use like the shields from the Carrick Acolytes.
Yep.
And so they'll be like heavily armored Zangor. And just a Zangor list. Like it's something that I've wanted to do since the Tzeentch book came out. In order to make it competitive, you have to run Carrick Acolytes. These like for the battalions, and I really don't want to do that.
Right.
I want to be like mostly Zangor, and so in order to make it that, it ends up be like falling into that Garage Hammer space.
It's funny you mention that because I have a similar Gore list that I've played a couple times, which is just Chaos Allegiance, but it's literally just like so it expands beyond Brayherd, and I just run all the different types of Gore. So I use the new stuff, like some Enlightened, some Skyfires, some Zangor, but I also then like mix in Bestigore and regular Gore, right? And I use like my commanders are the big Ogroid leader dude.
The Thaumaturge.
Yeah, and then I'll put in like a 3-pack of Minotaurs with a Doom Bowl or whatever, you know. So just kind of like across the list of all the bestial sort of chaos people like that, right? And that list is always really fun. Like I love the Gore aesthetic in general. And I don't like Brayherd Allegiance is fine, but I don't feel like I'm losing anything that massive by not doing it, that I'm not making up by then also getting to use all my Zangor and stuff like that in there. And I actually like having all that Gore stuff together. There's no actual, like Zangor have the Gore keyword. There's no actual synergy to it, which made me kind of sad. I do wish that like somebody triggered something just for Gore so you could have neat overlap, but it doesn't really matter. It's just about giant herds of bestial lunatics screaming out of the woods. And you can do that because you can have like a big pack of Zangor, a big pack of regular Gore, a big pack of Bestigore, and it just looks really cool when they're all on the table together. And you can use them in the traditional way you would. Like the Gore are your chaff, and then the Bestigore and the Zangor are your hard hitters, right? So it's pretty straightforward.
Cool.
Yeah.
What else?
Are you trying to think of your other fun synergies?
Yeah, like I like my dwarves. Obviously, like I ended up taking a competitive
Your
version.
dispossessed style dwarves.
Like no, my all dwarves.
Oh, okay. So in the same way as I just talked about with Gore, the all dwarf in list.
Yeah. Like I took a competitive version of that list to Adepticon last year and did well with it. But I just love throwing dwarf units on the board, you know, and like I can mix it up now because I have mobile units because of Cauldron. So I mean, I have some tanky stuff and some shooty stuff and some hitty stuff, and yeah, it's just a fun kind of like throw things on the table and see what shakes out.
Yeah, I think for me, another one that would fall into sort of that same idea is the old school chaos list. Okay. So I generally align them to a god. Unfortunately, I just think I find the regular Slaves to Darkness Allegiance not only not good but boring. That's my problem with it. That's my real problem with it. It's just boring. Um, sorry if you have a different opinion. That's cool. I'm like this. I'm not. That's not like some great objective judgment. But like I love using the old. Like I love giant armies where I use a lot of Chaos Knights. You know, I was a proponent of Chaos Knights when they were at 200. I used them all the time. I love them even more now that they're 160. But like I love a bunch of Chaos Knights on the board. I like throwing in the Chaos Chariots, my Chaos Lord on Manticore. Like I love none of these units are super optimized or great together. And I don't generally do giant blocks of like Chaos Warriors, right?
Yeah. You're not me.
No, correct. Because I think they can be annoying to play against. I was just say I don't have some. Like I like the aesthetic of Chaos Warriors. I'll put some on the table and they're a good battle line. Right. But I just love that sort of classic mounted chaos aesthetic, right? Like the knights and the chariots and the Manticore guy that's just the mounted forces of chaos rolling across the board. I think they actually work really well in multiple of the different allegiances, right? Where you can do things like take the Chaos Lord on Demonic Mount and stuff like that. Like I think they can have some nice interactions there.
Stuff there, obviously.
Yeah, I think each of the Chaos Gods honestly has some interesting ways you can utilize all those classic models. And I think that those are sculpts that have really held up over time. Like every time I put the Chaos Knights on the table, I feel good about them. I'm like, I love these dudes. Like they're I don't even know how old they are at this point. They got to be super old. I don't remember. Early 2000s probably.
Yeah.
But they still look so good.
Yeah, they were the 2003 range because they're the single unit boxes.
Oh, gotcha. Sure. Yeah, they're just so good. They're fun to put on the table. Yep. They can actually hit hard, you know, like with just a little bit of synergy stuff. And I think they're a cool they're just a cool classic unit. So
yeah, that's a good call. I hadn't considered that, but you're dead on. The Chaos Knight, like the mixed, like I've put mixed Nurgle, like the Knights, Knights list. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, for me, it usually ends up being like Tzeentch or Slaanesh. I have knights in both of those. Knights. So, but you know, the problem is with Khorne, I have a ton of converted female skull crushers. So like I have giant brass stampede lists I'll run. I don't know that classifies as a fun list. I think the brass stampede is. I think there are a couple very competitive versions of the brass stampede.
Yeah.
But I do love running all those guys. They're fun.
Yeah, totally.
That's more fun for me. That might not be as fun for your opponent when you go full on like hardcore brass stampede. But nonetheless, I think those are cool.
Yeah.
All right. I think that's a good selection. The point here for this, from my perspective, is this. You know, so I have I have 11 different armies. Okay. And I had to think about that for a moment. And one of the reasons I almost never play the same army like week to week, again, unless I'm like directly prepping for a tournament, is because our group plays like this. That is to say, plays fairly quote unquote casually or garage or basement style or whatever, you know, however you want to label this. Again, I'm not interested in the term. But what that means is that like every week I try new kooky stuff.
Right.
You know what I mean? I get to like cycle through all my armies. Nobody sits on the shelf just because they're like, oh, they're not good at the moment. Who cares? Like, because our group has planted that flag that this is the way we're going to play, it allows me to get value out of my entire collection. Like, most forces don't go longer than, even with as many armies I have, most forces don't go longer than a couple months without coming off the shelf and getting a game in, right? Being just cycling through. It lets me try different stuff, put different units on the board, even if they're not quote unquote good. It lets you have fun with your actual collection, as opposed to constantly worrying about like, what is this? what is this skew or this optimized list or this whatever? That has a home, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with either of these ways to play. Both have their advantages and things that the psychological utility that they will pay off. And what I would encourage people to do, if you're used to playing in a group that is a little more hardcore, I would encourage you to sort of like talk to them or direct them to the show, or talk about maybe playing some more fun lists, or have people. An easy way to do this is just have people bring unusual armies, or like bring a force you haven't played for a while, right? If people have to get things back out, make people build their list 15 minutes before the game starts or something like that. You know what I mean? Just like think of whatever kooky thing you can do that gets people out of that hardcore ultra competitive mindset. I think there's a lot of different ways to attack it, and your group is going to be different than any other group of people.
Yep.
So, find the way that you can all come together, discuss and agree on objectives that are unusual off of the list. Use the narrative scenarios out of one of the books, right, that are different. Like, these are all ways you can do this and get yourself unstuck from that mindset and have a lot more fun with your greater collection. That's my advice. I think that's the value.
Yeah, that's a good word. That's a good word.
All right. Tom, any final thoughts before we close out?
No, like, again, we talk often about like hard lists and tournament performance and stuff like that.
It's the easy thing to talk about.
It's one of the things that I'm interested in. So it's some of the things that we end up defaulting to. But there is this other world of playing Warhammer that's not that hard edge match play, and a lot of things, and play really well. And for those of you that like lean towards more of the competitive, let me encourage you that it can be often in the playfulness, that exploratory playfulness of throwing things on the board, that can be the seed for a competitive list that hasn't been discovered yet.
Yeah, that's a great point. Like, many times I've discovered, like, going back and forth, I've discovered fun things to use in harder lists by playing around with them in soft lists, right? So it actually does feed itself. So even if you are someone who's more inclined to build harder lists, to be a more,
So I joked about that Gore Pilgrim list, the ridiculousness of a Gore Pilgrim list.
Yeah.
The summoning one. There's probably an actual competitive version of that.
Sure. And that's just it. There is not enough games of Warhammer played to actually discover all these interesting things.
Right.
That's what's funny. Like, there's very much like an in vogue sort of nature to this, right?
Yeah.
And so playing
the meta is
can discover new stuff. Yeah.
The meta is a real thing. And like, I like to try to push those boundaries and find things outside of where the current meta is at.
Absolutely.
Like the Gore Pilgrims, or like my dwarf list. Like, nobody saw dwarves coming. Come on now.
Well, that's not nobody. Australia begs to differ. The continent as a whole begs to differ with you, I suspect.
Sure.
Outside of the antithetical bottom of the world, yes.
The mixed world, the mixed dwarf force is what I would say. Sure. No, but I play around with stuff is the word that I would give.
There you go. Right on.
Yeah.
All right, so that brings us to the end of our show. Certainly hope you enjoyed it. We enjoyed having you come along through this journey through our wacky list creation. Hopefully we gave you some ideas for some lists of your own, or some ways you can try this stuff out with your group. As I said, next week we're going to be talking about one of my favorite subjects, a thing I literally can't wait for. 2019 is going to be a banner year, buddy. Like, this is
Didn't we say that about 2018?
We did, and we were right. But 2019, this is all just 2018 has just been foreplay, literally, for 2019. All right, that's all I'm saying. So, at any rate, we thank you very much for watching, and as always, we'll see you next Wednesday.